Alright, we begin this plethora of Sabrina Carpenter costume pieces with her pink corseted skirt look. I got a dress that looked like it was 2 parts, not exact, but close enough is now good enough for me. I used this fabric that looks a lot like her boot fabric that we shall see more later on, going forward to map out where I wanted the heart to be cut out of this piece. I then took it off of me and placed it on a flat surface and traced around it loosely with a marker. This is not a full corset like she has, but it is more structured than, let's say, a normal top would be. So I had to keep that in mind when cutting it out. I didn't want to cut through the plastic supports, which show in the end, but as they are mostly clear plastic, I was fine with it. I took some thicker gauge wire and shaped it to be a little bit bigger than the heart hole I had just cut out. Flipped the piece inside out and started on my fabric hot glue journey. Placing hot glue around the edges on half, placing the wire down, and then placing more hot glue over top of the wire. And folding and holding the edges down so the other side would have more of a crisp line to it and a clean edge. Once that was done, I flipped it back over and took some nail polish remover and a Q-tip to wipe away the lines you could still see. Now, I could have gone full out with the rhinestones on this or added sequins or maybe lace to get the exact match, but this was already a process and I couldn't find any sequins or lace online that I liked enough. However, if you're doing this, you could definitely add that on or get yourself a stencil of some sort and place that down, perhaps paint over the stencil to leave more of a design, or just give the look that I've done, placing a small dollop of E6000 on the tip of tweezers, both tips actually, to create a very small dot in different areas, cascading around the heart. Then I just add a few somewhat carefully placed little rhinestones down onto the dollops. Focusing the bigger rhinestones closer to the cutout, and as I said, cascading out the smaller ones. While that was drying, I also wanted to get into her infamous lip or kissed tights. Hers are definitely shinier, like I believe her and Taylor Swift actually get the same kind, but I got as shiny as I could. Place them over the bottom half of my mannequin. And attempted to get the exact kiss she had on there by searching it up on my phone. I was attempting to place my phone between the mannequin and the tights, which didn't work out. So my plan B was to find a photo online as close as I could get to the lips, which I did. I found a few that I got to choose from. and so I chose this bad boy. I printed it out on some previously used paper because it didn't matter in the end, and I did a couple of test prints to see which size I needed and got it out on the third try, and then folded the paper up so it was just easier to put it in between the mannequin and the tights. I then used a red fabric marker to outline the approximation where the lips were. I did it a little below the lips and above to make them closer together, and then took the paper out, and because I had previously put saran wrap on my mannequin for another project, but we'll get into that another day, I just kept it on, and I could paint directly onto the tights without having to worry about my mannequin. I then added puffy fabric paint and also red rhinestones as it was still wet. Once it was completely dry though, I removed the tights from my mannequin. Finally, it was time for the boots, which you may recognize the fabric from as what we started the pink corset with. I thought these boots were fairly accurate to the ones she wears, at least one of the ones that she wears, like a rendition of them, except they were too long height-wise and obviously didn't have the heart. So I needed to determine how far I was going to cut them down, literally using rhinestones as a count indicator. I then removed the pieces that are used to like tighten them up and make them fit better because I actually like those pieces and wanted to add them later on. I used a tape measure to find out how big the pocket needed to be, measuring the width of the threaded piece and timesing by 2, then adding half an inch of seam allowance, and then put that number above the marking that I had just done on my boot as to show 2 cut there. I then folded it over on itself, making sure the original blue line that I had placed was only slightly hidden on the inside of the boot. And then I sewed it down on both boots in a very slowly and cautious way to make sure I wasn't going to break my needle on the rhinestones. Once I had them both sewn up, I cut a little slit into the back where I would be threading my piece through with a safety pin, as one does. A little cheat or hack of sorts. I tried them both on again to make sure that everything was just how I wanted it, and then planned out where the heart would go, again by counting the rhinestones. I brought up a photo of her shoe, or I guess her boots. Shoes are still boots, boots are still shoes, okay. and used some clear plastic to go over my phone and trace the heart onto the plastic. I genuinely didn't even notice until the editing of this that her shoes actually have a border around the heart, so I did not add that. But you definitely can learn from my mistakes and add it if you wish, maybe with some fabric paint or a marker. I might do that too, who knows. I then cut the half shape out from the plastic and placed it down onto my boot where I wanted to go and traced it. Once I had the half cut out, I simply flipped it over so I could use it as its own stencil for the other side, and then cut that one out as well. Beyond me using jute wire for this, and not a regular piece of wire, and using an old present box to give it a little bit of a stretch, all the steps are the same. Steps, no pun intended. As when I did the heart cutout on the top, with the shaping it, cutting it down, flipping it inside out, gluing it down with, again, fabric hot glue, and then gluing the fabric backwards to kind of crisp up the lines and hold the wire in place. But that is it for today's video, and hope you guys enjoy. Happy Halloween!